Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of the X-Files, dedicated to learning how the biggest financial institutions use AI to battle unauthorized change risk. My name is Jim Walkhouse. I'm the Director of Product Marketing for Evolvin, and sometimes Man in Black. For the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to share with you some stories from the field about unauthorized changes and sometimes unexplained changes, and how Evolvin is used to investigate and eliminate. So we have a problem. We have a change manager here who's seeking a solution to unauthorized changes. And this potential prospect who was confessing her very real pain that she was feeling right now in 2023.
I am a part of the enterprise service management team accountable for ServiceNow, the platform and product and engineering. So I think there's several people from my organization here. For me, very interested and focused on upping our game in change management. So changes, tech changes into the environment. We have a high impact of major incidents from change management process today. And we do have unauthorized changes. So the intent of what we're looking to is to close the gap. So we have real robust processes to close all gaps that are currently open today. And I know one's around unauthorized and changes is one key area.
So we talk to a lot of people every day, and this is just one example of what our prospects are saying to us, literally verbatim. And doesn't any of that sound familiar to any of you? I'm hoping because you're on this webinar that it does, and that the next few minutes of your time will be well spent learning more about how large financial institutions actually use Evolvin and our AI to help with this problem. So why is it that unauthorized changes happen in these large financial institutions despite what is an enviable budget and mandates to do better? I mean, they have very mature processes and controls in place, and these things still happen. Well, in reality, there are planned changes, and you are directed as a directive control, to use your service desk, to use your IT service management platform, your CMDB, and put in approved change requests before any kind of changes occur in your IT environment. Once those changes are actually executed, the actual changes by the application teams, by the service teams, by the platform and infrastructure teams, they get tested, usually pretty vigorously. And then they get deployed into production. And again, the service ticket hopefully is going along with all of those changes, and all of the deployments are happening just as planned. But once the application actually is put into operations, there are still outages that occur, rollbacks that have to happen, security issues that come up, slowed rollouts. We just saw an incident with ServiceNow, where they were talking about a misconfiguration that was a potential security hole. And really, what the big question is what actually changed, or what is actually different between development, test, and production? And a lot of times this can come down to what are unauthorized changes. You have these millions of changes that are happening, tens of thousands of tickets. You need to reconcile those both, and everything that doesn't reconcile or isn't approved is obviously an unauthorized change. You might have developers in production making changes. You might have vendors who are making changes to their infrastructure that you're using. You might have manual changes that are being done by people who don't know about the process, or maybe are ignoring the process. You can have emergency changes that are happening in order to patch security vulnerabilities, or maybe are critical updates, hot fixes, and things like that. There could be changes from malicious intent. These are the, what the so-called vendors in EDR are looking for. But they're usually a very small percentage of the actual unauthorized changes that are occurring. Cutting corners in process is common. People don't want to take the time in order to put in the change ticket, in order to follow the process and things like that. You can have negligent changes. Somebody fat fingers something, somebody starts making a change before lunch, and then when they come back from lunch, they've forgotten where they were and nothing gets quite completed. You have abusal of the pre-approval process. So somebody is given a permission to make certain changes, but they make additional changes along with that. And then you just have this stupid, fat finger manual mistakes in configurations and things like that. What all of this comes down to is you're always left with the question, what actually changed? You have your service desk telling you these are the expected changes, and then you have what actually is deployed in the environment, the actual changes that have occurred. Evolvin is there to fill the gap and make correlations between those two things and tell you with AI what changes actually occurred that are the riskiest, what changes occurred that are not pre-approved, and you may need to go address. At this point, I'd like to pause and just say, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you'd like any clarification, please don't hesitate to raise your hand in the chat, put a chat request in. I am happy to make this as interactive a session as possible in order to give you the most value out of it. So without further ado, I'll continue. So financial wants to deal with these unauthorized change risks. For one reason, primarily, is compliance. They have a lot of different financial mandates, SOX, GLBA, it can be zero trust, it can be any number of, it can be CIS, NIST. There are plenty of standards and regulations on banks, OCC. And oftentimes, the biggest barrier to them satisfying those compliance mandates is a lack of automation. Essentially, manual effort is a barrier to success in that realm. Also, you have the vast complexity of the IT organization. And oftentimes, there is a lack of real-time data on the actual compliance checks that need to happen on different systems at all times in order to tell what is compliant and what isn't, or what is authorized and what isn't. According to Gartner, 87 hours of application downtime is the average for any large enterprise in the world today. That is a lot of hours of downtime. And I'm actually going to go into what that may cost some organizations, especially large financial organizations. And finally, there's also the problem of security. As we talked about, malicious intent could be the cause of unauthorized changes. Cyber incidents are one of the biggest concerns for business risk in 2022, and I'm sure that's going to continue in 2023 and beyond. Because there is a huge financial incentive for hackers to get in and get data and sell it. There's also a huge financial incentive, obviously, for them to use ransomware, where they're encrypting data or they're causing intentionally outages that they can then use to extort money from their from our potential customers and businesses. So what are the bottom line costs of the kind of outages that I'm talking about here? If you have 87 hours of potential downtime, and according to the IT Process Institute, 80% of outages can be attributed to unauthorized changes or misconfigurations done by administrators, then what we end up with is about 70 hours of unauthorized change outages, or UCOs. And the UCO acronym, obviously, is part of where we got the idea for doing this X-Files themed webinar for UCOs and UCO sightings. 70 hours of UCOs can translate to $6.48 million per hour for a large financial institution when they have an outage. Now, this number can range anywhere from tens of thousands of dollars on the low end for some enterprises, all the way up to this very large number per hour for large financial institutions in a critical application. But ultimately, what that means is the bottom line risk for these organizations could be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And this is a big motivator for them to come to Evolvin and say, Jim, how do we get visibility? How do we get control? How do we see all of these changes and decide which ones are authorized and good and not risky or benevolent, and which ones are bad or unauthorized or very risky and might predict future outages or future security problems or future compliance problems. So enter the Evolvin solution. We provide visibility, AI analytics, and orchestration to control unauthorized changes. So it starts with visibility, deep data collections into all of the granular details of all the changes that are happening in the environment. Then we apply patented machine learning analytics to not only correlate actual changes from approved changes, but also assess baselines against drifting components. And when I say drift, I mean configuration drift, anomaly detection, consistency analysis. Anyone might use any of these terms to describe that problem. Evolvin helps solve it, and we use our machine learning platform, our AI, to help solve that in the most efficient, cost-effective fashion as possible. And then finally, we orchestrate processes by expediting reconciliation, expediting root cause analysis, and integrating with existing tools. As I've mentioned, ServiceNow. As I haven't mentioned, but I could, would be log management, things like SIMS, Splunk, QRadar, things like that, or application performance management tools, Dynatrace, and things like that. Ultimately, Evolvin is this AI-driven end-to-end solution for IT change reconciliation that improves your visibility, improves your efficiency, and allows you to break down silos between developers, between compliance folk, between security folk, DevOps folk, what have you. All these different teams that are working in your environment can use Evolvin as their one pane of glass point of truth for changes that are occurring in the environment. And let's talk about visibility via the deep data collection for unauthorized change detection. When we say the entire environment, we really do mean the entire environment. It can be all of your applications, your web servers, your storage infrastructure, your cloud, whether it be a public cloud like Google or Amazon or Azure, or a private cloud, VMware, Kubernetes, OpenShift, what have you. All of your operating systems, your databases, your Active Directory systems or directory systems, any middleware, things like that. And what we do is we bring in all of the configuration types that you could possibly imagine, whether it is discrete configuration in text files or text-like files, or it's command line output, or it's code that's been put into GitHub and now is being deployed through the environment. We can actually look at it throughout the CI/CD pipeline and tell you what the risk of it is. And then finally, we really get into the granular details of all of these configurations. And hopefully you'll see in my very brief demo that's coming up what these kind of details can be for a configuration. It's much deeper than, let's say, your ServiceNow service mapping would be, or other discovery tools might tell you. This is agent or agentless based collection, very deep in the infrastructure with all of the details. So let's hear a testimonial from an actual customer who's using Evolvin right now about the visibility that Evolvin provides.
I think initially it's been fantastic. The tool has been right. We have leveraged the tool to help us get control of unauthorized change. They do know it's out there, so our unauthorized change numbers are extremely low, which they should be because they know it's out there, right? And if it wasn't out there, it would be higher. So long story short, it's doing what it's supposed to do. But we've had some great visibility, and we'll continue to have some great visibility. We're actually moving forward with our integrations with ServiceNow so that we can provide the reporting around it. So a lot of great work has been done there.
So believe it or not, I didn't have to use the neuralizer from Men in Black or any strong arm tactics to get that confession. I think it's interesting to note that our VP of IT here is pointing out a very typical Earthling response to being observed. Watched people behaved differently, okay? So just knowing that Evolvin is in the environment and is seeing the changes means that people are more closely following the directive controls more studiously, right? Evolvin is a detective control, and it goes directly with the directive control of change management to ensure that you can trust your people to do the right thing, but you can also verify that the right thing is happening. And one of the interesting things that our VP of IT brings up here is that the ServiceNow integration, or the IT service management integration, is a very important component of using Evolvin, especially with the AI functionality.
I think initially it's.
So let's talk about what banks discovered about manual authorization. And what they really discovered was it's really expensive to do manually. If you have thousands of tickets or tens of thousands of tickets, let's say in a ServiceNow, you have to reconcile those versus potentially millions of actual changes. And we'll talk about a case study where our customer had millions of changes that they were able to filter down into only a few thousand that they actually had to look at in any way, shape, or form because they were using Evolvin to do this automatic reconciliation. So let's talk about what that looks like in detail. So banks use Evolvin's AI to match changes with tickets automatically. So first and foremost, as a change occurs, the Evolvin platform detects the actual change that happened and can correlate it with the plan changes that authorized it. Also, we can group related changes together to simplify human-led decisions. So if a bunch of changes occur at the same time and they don't have a ticket associated, we can make a pretty good determination with our AI that that's an unauthorized change, and we should go look at that. But in addition, there can be insignificant or noisy changes that occur outside of the tickets that we would be able to mask. We can also reduce the data in our database by using the AI to look for identical changes and map them all to essentially one pointer so that you don't have to keep all of that data in, let's say, your Splunk instance where it's going to cost you extra money. We can also tell with our AI about missing changes or incomplete change requests. So if the change request was supposed to hit 10 different systems and it only hit 9 of them, let's say, then we know that there's a 10th system out there that we still need to address. And that's a very important piece of missing information that our AI can tell you about. If the change is also supposed to hit certain applications on a server and it only hits a subset of them, we can tell you about that inconsistency as well. In addition, we can tell you about unexpected changes that have happened within a CR. So if the CR was expecting to make changes ABC, but A, B, C, and D happened, then that is an unexpected change that might be associated with the CR. Maybe they happened at the same time on the same system by the same user. The AI can make that determination very quickly and tell you about it. Other extra changes. And then finally, there's another type of change, which is late changes that might happen outside of a change window that are still associated with a CR. The AI can bring those in and automatically reconcile them so that you don't have to do a costly investigation later on. Again, masking noisy changes, identifying standard or pre-approved changes is a big part of what the AI provides, and automatically reconciling repetitive changes or business as usual patterns is something else that the AI can learn about in your environment and reconcile automatically. I think this is an important set of concepts to understand about what the AI is doing for you. And if there are any questions or comments or concerns about that, it looks like
Yeah,
that came in.
you see it, Jim. Yeah, we have a question from Sandy Conrad.
Sandy asks, is the difference between change detection with Evolvin and versus ServiceNow because of the level of detail you observe? That is, Sandy, that is dead on one part of it. ServiceNow has a really good discovery engine. You can deploy the mid server, you can deploy discovery agents that can look for various components in your infrastructure and things like that. But what it's really interested in doing is populating a kind of high-level association between the configuration items, the CIs, about how the service is mapped, literally. You know, what databases are associated, what middleware is associated, what network devices, what cloud services, what have you, and who's communicating with who about what, right? That is a great level of detail, and it gets you started. But then what Evolvin does is we deploy agents onto all of those systems, or we deploy agentless connections to all of those systems to get the granular details about what's actually changing. ServiceNow is not going to tell you about, oh, you know, this ACL on this particular network device changed in this way. This user was added or this user was deleted, and that happened at this time. It's just going to say that network device changed. And by providing that level of detail and that reconciliation, we actually enhance ServiceNow's value to your organization. And we also drive compliance to using that IT service management solution. You've probably invested, you know, if you're like any other large enterprise, you can invest a lot of money in your ServiceNow, and you really want to have 100% compliance with the directive control of using ServiceNow to make changes in your environment. And as we heard from our VP of IT, just knowing that Evolvin is watching makes people behave differently. So I hope that answers your question. And if there's other questions that have come up, please bring them. I love it when it's interactive. All right, I'm going to continue. There's not much more to this. We're about 5 minutes away from the conclusion. But one of the things that I want to do is I want to demonstrate very briefly a reconciliation dashboard. Now, this is only one capability of the Evolvin platform. There are many, many more use cases that are built into this platform. And I assure you that we have representatives that would love to talk to you about them. But I wanted to make sure that I included a live demo of at least some functionality of the platform itself. In this case, I'm going to go to tickets for unauthorized changes. And when I do, okay. So I'm going to go to tickets for unauthorized changes. And when I do, you can see that we have all of these unauthorized changes that were brought out by the system as not having been ticketed. One of the things that you might notice from the level of detail is that we have a IBM system here. We have a database system. We have a web server, a Windows system, an Active Directory. We have an F5 load balancer involved here, some other network devices, things like that. We have a wide range of systems that have unauthorized changes on them. And for any of these changes, you can go into the details and you can see very specifically what actually changed on the system. You can go into this kind of detail. You can go into all the details that we've collected for this particular system. And that kind of analysis, that kind of capture, deep data capture, is one of the things that I wanted to highlight in this webinar. This by no means is a complete demonstration of the system. This is just one very small aspect of it, but I wanted to make sure that I included some live fire demonstration in this webinar. If you'd like to see more, I invite you to set up a follow-on meeting. Now, why do the banks trust us? Well, because they're obviously able to reconcile all of these changes, but they're able to proactively escalate or act on service requests and on incidents. They're able to investigate those incidents, and oftentimes site reliability engineers will rely on Evolvin because we have data from all of the different silos of information for them to be able to do a very diligent root cause analysis. And really, the Evolvin system allows you to trust your people, but verify what they're doing with full confidence that you're actually capturing this information with fidelity. And what I'd like to do is, as promised, I'd like to go into some specifics about case studies that we've seen with our customers. For this customer, a very, very large financial institution that has been using Evolvin for many years, they saw millions of changes that made their change audit costs skyrocket because of manual reconciliation. They literally realized multi-million-dollar annual savings and operational costs, not just in that reconciliation, but also in the reduction of manual access, the reduction in deployment issues, and the reduction in incidents that they saw. Another organization that we provided visibility for primarily saw essentially 100% increase in their visibility into changes. They had unauthorized changes everywhere. They had a tremendous amount of effort being spent on root cause analysis, and it was really very costly. They had certificates that were expiring that were causing 1 to 2 outages per month. And they had some very costly auditor findings. I believe this was OCC, that they were able to reduce to 0. They have no more findings now that they've been using Evolvin. 100% visibility, no more findings, vast reduction in root cause analysis efforts, and reduction in certificate outages, thanks to Evolvin. And thanks to the AI in Evolvin, because it is automating manual processes that weren't working. They're error prone, they're laborious, they're inefficient. And this organization, another bank, they had an 80% reduction in incidents. They were seeing as many as hundreds of incidents per year. They were having dozens of failed releases per year. They really reduced that substantially. One of the biggest problems they had were in disaster recovery scenarios. They had inconsistencies between their disaster recovery environment and their production environment. By using Evolvin, they were able to see those inconsistencies and fix them before they ever had to go into a disaster recovery scenario. And then what I'd like to say in conclusion is everyone can rely on Evolvin. You don't have to be a large financial institution to gain this benefit of the hybrid deep collections of the hands-free change reconciliation, of the unification of silos between developers, security, compliance, operations, by getting a prevention of outages in your environment and savings on regulatory compliance. Obviously, you need to be in a regulated industry, but at this point, almost every industry is regulated, and all you need to do is look at what the SEC just found against SolarWinds to see how costly that can be. So what I'd like to do in conclusion is thank you for your time today. I hope I kept this brief enough and at an appropriate level. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, I invite you to bring them right now. Oh, thank you, Sandy. I appreciate the feedback.
Yes, we have one question here, Jim.
Yes.
We'll have a two-parter. What is a deployment of Evolvin like, and how long does it take to get value from this tool?
Got it. So deployment of Evolvin involves it actually can depend. It can if you have legacy tools that you'd like to import content from, Evolvin actually can take in information from legacy tools. For instance, if you have custom applications that you really want to make sure are monitored in a certain way, or policies that are monitored in a certain way, Evolvin can bring those in. And we have an excellent tool for doing that kind of import. But really, the way it starts is you're going to deploy agents in your environment on the operating systems. You're going to connect agentlessly to your cloud infrastructure, to your network devices, and things like that to collect from them. And our system is going to pull those systems doing the deep data collection, and the analysis starts up immediately. The server architecture of Evolvin deploys well vertically as well as horizontally. So you can use multiple systems in order to do maybe the deep data collection, and then do multiple systems for database retention and so on and so forth. But that's all stuff for our professional services or our customer support guys. But suffice to say, I'm probably making this sound a lot more complex than it needs to be. We've had customers that have gotten a value out of Evolvin within the first hour of deploying it, by being able to tell about inconsistencies in critical servers, by being able to tell about vulnerabilities in their environment, and by being able to tell that there were certificates that were about to be expired. So I hope that answered that question. Any other questions? Don't be shy. Would it help if I took off the glasses?
Okay, awesome. Just one more question here.
Sure.
What is the false positive rate, or really how much manual effort does it require to tune?
Sure. So oftentimes with like integrity monitoring tools and things like that, vendors have tried to solve the problem of that using a knowledge-based approach. They use Boolean logic. Is it within a change window? Is it within a policy? Things like that. Evolvin takes an entirely different approach. We were built from the ground up with our AI as the basis for this. And this is AI that differs, for instance, from like ChatGPT and the large language models, in that it's not a general AI. It's literally a vertically focused AI on change analysis, drift detection, and data reduction. So our false positive rate is very, very low. And even when there are false positives, there's certainly it's easy to see the logic of how that false positive is actually an unauthorized change or a risky change. It's just not maybe very risky or maybe partially authorized. And we actually have a concept of partially authorized or potentially authorized in the AI model. So one of the things that I didn't mention that I should at this point was, for all of you who stayed to the very end, we do have a prize giveaway. So while you were watching this, we were looking to do a treat for you, and I think we have a prize winner for the drone. Is that right? And it looks like the drone winner is for Gloria, our first to sign in. So congratulations, Gloria. Are you still on? All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the questions and look forward to hopefully working with you in the future. Bye-bye.